the headliners, the newsmakers, the political scene, and government issues. These should be our concern. And we're taking you at the forefront. Good morning. I am Attorney Karen Jimeno. Join me at the forefront as we zero in and discuss the details of some of the most pressing national issues that our country faces. When we opened the month of August with outspoken Attorney Harry Roque as our guest, he mentioned that he is not one to lose in debates, more so in arguments. But in the series of congressional inquiry on Pogo raids and operations for the past 2 weeks, a not so well-known congresswoman from Batangas rose to national prominence as she grilled and lectured the former presidential spokesperson on lawyer-client relationship and even his relationship with the former president. Who is Congresswoman Jinky Luistro? And has Attorney Harry Roque met his match? Joining us today at the forefront is Batangas 2nd District Representative Jinky Luistro. Good morning, Congresswoman Jinky.
Good morning, Attorney Karen. Thank you for having me here.
Welcome at the forefront, Congresswoman. So let's start first. Your surname is one of the rare Luistro surnames. Are you related to the former Education Secretary, Brother Armin Luistro?
Well, I believe yes. However, since we have not met yet, I wish to maintain my answer that we still need to meet and develop the relationship of coming from the same origin in Batangas.
Okay. Well, you made headlines last week for your handling of Attorney Harry Roque in the congressional inquiry. First, let's watch this clip.
Pagka ho ba may maling desisyon ang presidente, will you not volunteer your legal expertise to correct the president?
Unless I am asked for my opinion, Mr. Chair, I will not volunteer, Your Honor.
May I ask the resource speaker? When the president issued Executive Order number 13, don't you think he legislated?
Again, Your Honor, I am unable to answer because that is not within my expertise. I have mentioned that my expertise is in the field of public international law, having taught and practiced that. And I am sorry because I'm not very familiar with Executive Order number 13.
As a presidential spokesperson, do you think it was within the scope of Attorney Harry Roque to give legal advice to the president?
I believe yes, Attorney, because as discussed during the interpellation, I asked him, is becoming a presidential spokesperson occupying a position of trust and confidence? And he answered yes to that question. So I believe that if you are somebody occupying this position, you have to guide your principal. You have to correct if there are occasions that he is about or he will commit erroneous decisions. So knowing for a fact that Attorney Roque is a legal expert, I really find it strange why he did not volunteer that legal advice or expertise in order to guide the former president.
And you didn't seem to be convinced that Attorney Harry Roque was not familiar with Executive Order number 13. Can you give us insights into what would be the effect if he was familiar with EO 13 and failed to advise former President Duterte about this?
First of all, it is hard to believe that he is not aware of EO 13. EO 13 was issued by the former president during the time that he was the presidential spokesperson. And we can see that from his everyday engagement, how attached, how close, how constant his communication is with the former president. Plus the fact, Attorney Karen, that he is a legal expert and he has attended several hearings already, Attorney, with the Senate and the Congress. And all these hearings are all about Pogos and the crime related to Pogo. So I really find it unbelievable that somebody like Atty Roque will not be aware of EO 13.
The next clip is on the separation of powers during the congressional inquiry. Let's watch this.
There is in law the principle of separation of powers. And I wish to share the case of Belgica versus Ochoa, GR number 208566, November 19, 2013, on the constitutionality of the Priority Development Assistance Fund. For the information of the Filipino people, I wish to read the principle of separation of powers. Through the court belongs the power to interpret laws. I wish to go back to Atty Roque. Atty Roque, don't you think that the President encroached upon the power of the Congress when he issued Executive Order number 13?
Although it is not my expertise, I will give my opinion, my candid opinion. And that is, under our scheme of things, executive issuances, legislative enactments are all presumed to be constitutional unless proven otherwise.
Let us all be reminded by the legal maxim, inclusio unius est exclusio alterius. Kung wala naman pong sinabi dun sa substantive law, then the procedural law should not provide. Let us be reminded that the procedural law should always. I wish to state for the record that when the President issued Executive Order number 13, it is the humble submission of this representation. He legislated, he amended, he repealed the law, an act which violates the fundamental principle of separation of power.
Jinky.
Abogado ng Lucky South, 99.
Hindi po, wala po akong attorney-client relationship sa kahit sino na shareholder or officer ng Lucky Star.
It is very clear, Mr. Chair, that from the definition of a lawyer-client relationship, kahit walang kontrata, kahit walang payment of legal fees, the moment the client starts seeking advice and the lawyer starts giving advice, a client-attorney relationship is created.
Kaya miski wala pong bayad, wala pong kontrata, wala rin po kaming komunikasyon. Dahil ang komunikasyon ko po, lahat po yan ay kay Ong lamang.
He was never consulted by Lucky South 99, but he has been repeating a while ago that Cassandra Ong is the representative of Lucky South 99. Is it not that the consultations made by Representative Ong with Atty Roque, the consultations as well that was made by Lucky South 99 with Atty Roque?
Congresswoman Jinky, I'll take a step back and go to the first congressional inquiry where you raised the issue of Executive Order 13, encroaching on the legislative powers. Attorney Harry Roque didn't go into the details of whether that is the case. He just said that this should go to the Supreme Court. But in your opinion, why is this an encroachment? If we look at Executive Order 13, it talks about clarifying the powers of the agencies to address illegal gambling. So why do you think this was an encroachment?
Attorney, we have to go back to the very charter of PCOR. That is Presidential Decree number 1869. This is the law which created PCOR, and it granted as well the power to regulate all gaming activities. It provided for a definition of what gambling is. And gambling as defined in PD 1869 is the traditional gambling without use of online, without use of technology. It made mention of sabong, it made mention about mahjong, it even made mention about betting sa horse, sa karera ng mga kabayo, things like that. And then we have this RA 9487. it technically extended the franchise of PAGCOR into another 25 years. The same definition of gambling was adopted in RA 9487. However, after some time, back in 2017, the former president issued EO number 13, which suddenly made mention about online gambling. That was the first time na na-mention ang online gambling. And then next to this was the issuance of licenses by the PAGCOR. In my humble opinion, attorney, I believe that if the intention of the former president then was really to allow, legalize gambling in the Philippines, particularly online gambling, they should have referred the matter to the Congress, which has the exclusive authority to enact laws. But what happened was, hindi po nila binalik sa Kongreso and instead passed this EO number 13, which opened the gate for the operation and establishment of POGOs in the Philippines.
Congresswoman Jinky, when this Executive Order 13 was issued in 2017. It's been 7 years since then. Do you think there would have been someone that should have questioned this back then if it was indeed an encroachment on congressional powers?
You know, attorney, I do not want to speak for the past administration, you know, but it is only this time that the Pogo-related crimes are being unveiled. Nakita po natin ito, yung mga kidnapping, human trafficking, murder, internet scam, the tortures, these are all documented, no? Perhaps I wish to believe na because of the realization of the evils brought by Pogos, this is the time when the people really evaluate, look back, ano ba itong Pogo, anong pinagmula nito.
So do you think that if not for all the related crimes that are being unveiled when it comes to Pogo operations, then no one would have questioned whether Executive Order 13 was constitutional in the first place? Like, for example, if it did bring a lot of revenue to the country, a lot of jobs, then whatever the status was of EO 13, legally, no one would question it.
I wish to submit that perhaps no one will bother to review the legality of EO 13 because we are overwhelmed already by the income-generating feature of this Pogo operation that they bring in the Philippines, no? And of course, it helped a lot the operation of the Philippine government, most especially the mandate of the PAGCOR. However, with all the evils related to Pogo, I think people came to realize that we need to go back, step back, review, scrutinize what is EO 13.
Okay. And so in that case, I think that Atty Harry Roque also has a point that if we were to question the legality of EO 13, the proper forum would be the Supreme Court. So do you intend to file a case in the Supreme Court?
We have yet to wait for the conclusion of our Quadcom investigation, attorney, because it is quite challenging to initiate this kind of action, questioning EO 13 before the Supreme Court until and unless we have seen the connection of all these issues and illegal activities which are being investigated before by 4 separate committees which we have created in one under Quadcom already, attorney.
Okay. And in the video clips that we showed earlier, in another congressional inquiry, you also questioned Atty Harry Roque in relation to his attorney-client relationship with Lucky Star. Do you think that he would be liable if there was indeed an attorney-client relationship that Atty Roque had with Lucky Star?
Well, it depends if all these illegalities happened under the watch of the lawyer, who in this case we assume is Atty Harry Roque, then I believe he becomes a principal by direct participation. I understand that it is not part of the canon of legal profession that you conform to the illegal activities of your client. So, as an answer to your question, Attorney Karen, it depends on whether we have evidence to establish that apart from being the attorney of Lucky South, he is knowledgeable of all the illegal activities being committed by his client.
And what is your official stand on Pogos right now, Congresswoman Jinky?
Well, like my colleagues in Congress, we've seen the appreciation of the members of the House and even the senators when the President made his pronouncement for the total ban of Pogos. I am really against Pogo operation. Although we do not discount the fact that it gives income to the Philippines by way of taxes, there are so many social problems. And to be specific, the criminalities that were brought about by the Pogo operation that we really need to deter and stop.
Okay. Do you think it would be more efficient if the President issued an executive order as well when it comes to implementing a ban on all types of Pogos?
I do not want to preempt the President, but I wish to go back to the very principle of separation of power and to finally put an end to all of this. Let us recognize that the exclusive power to make laws, to enact laws, belongs to the Congress. And I understand, Attorney, that we are discussing already the possibility of passing a law which will give realization to the pronouncement of the President for the total ban of all Pogo operations.
Congresswoman, based on what you've seen so far from all the congressional inquiries in Congress and even in Senate, what does Congress currently have in mind in order to effectively eliminate all types of Pogos?
You know, Karen, this is a very complex issue. As a matter of fact, this is the reason which brought us to creating Quadcom. The issues of dangerous drugs, the issues of extrajudicial killing, the issues of Pogos, and the en masse acquisition of hectares of land in Pampanga. We used to investigate this separately under their respective committees. Until such time, we noted the commonalities of personalities, issues, and circumstances among these four committees, which gave us a question of what is the connection among these four major issues confronting us today. And this led us to creating Quadcom, or quadruple committee, should I say, where these four committees will be investigating all together the four issues and try to find out, ferret the truth about the possibility that they are related to one another. If indeed they are related to one another, Attorney Karen, I wish to believe that this can be considered as transnational crimes already, involving foreign nationals, which may possibly involve even international syndicates, that we have to come up with a better, effective, responsive bill or law which will really address and deter the commission of these transnational crimes in the Philippines.
The Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission mentioned that there are over 400 illegal Pogos operating in the country. Most of them, they said, are in Luzon. But are you aware of any illegal Pogo operations in Batangas? But before you answer that question, Congresswoman Jinky, we'll have to take a short break. At the Forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the Forefront. Before the break, Congresswoman Jinky, we were asking you, the Presidential Anti-Organized Crime mentioned that there are over 400 Pogos operating, but mostly in Luzon. But are you aware of any Pogos operating in Batangas?
Attorney, I can speak only for myself, huh? I don't know any Pogos in Batangas. And I remember I also asked our governor, Governor Dodo Mandanas, if he is receiving any information about the possible Pogo operation. And he said no. What he believes, there are no Pogos also in Batangas.
So as a congresswoman from Batangas, have you had any experience having to deal with Pogos or constituents going to you in relation to Pogos?
No, none
Okay.
at all.
Wow, considering how big Batangas is and so much talent to be hired as well.
Yeah.
So admittedly, Pogo has brought in jobs as well for the
Yes,
country.
yes.
So has Congress planned anything, or is there something that Congress has looked into doing in order to address the jobs that would be lost once all of these Pogos, including the licensed Pogos, are being winded down?
Yes. If you recall, Attorney, this is part of the presidential pronouncement during the SONA that side by side with the total ban of Pogo, I think the President tasked the Department of Labor and Employment to look into the possibility of creating alternative jobs for the people who will be displaced because of the total ban of Pogo.
But it seems like at least for the province of Batangas, that won't be an issue for you and your district.
We are blessed because we are not confronted with this issue, and no displacement of employees or workers will be happening because there are no Pogos in Batangas, as far as I know, Attorney.
Congresswoman, in your opinion, do you think it's feasible to really wind down all Pogos in the country by end of 2024?
If it is feasible, I think yes, because PCOR has started already, and I don't think there will be struggles and challenges because after all, the bettors are online, and it was July when the President announced, so I think they still have 6 months to do the winding up of all these Pogo operations. And we have seen the evils brought by Pogo, so I think everybody should cooperate towards realizing this presidential pronouncement.
These Pogo operations all have hard assets, meaning they occupied like hundreds of buildings and then of course all the equipment they're in. House Speaker Martin Romualdez mentioned that there should be an oversight body and also an inventory management so that there will also be, we can prevent the abuses of local government units when it comes to, any of these assets either being appropriated or stolen. What is your take on this?
We need to preserve. We need to make sure that the properties we confiscated or we are confiscating from the Pogo operations will be preserved so that it will inure to the benefit of the Filipino people. We can make use of this in favor of the Filipino people to promote their interests, to address their needs, to help the local government perhaps who can use these facilities, because after all, these are product of illegalities which can be a proper subject of escheat proceedings.
You mentioned earlier during the break that there would be a Quadcom hearing that you will be holding in Porac. Can you tell us more about this? Is this, will you also be looking into also the assets that will be left behind by Pogos once they're wounded down so that you can have, legislation that would address these issues?
Yes, Attorney Karen. Actually, it will be held in Bacolor, Pampanga. And the reason why we are holding the hearing in Pampanga is to bring the investigation to closer to the people whom we want to invite. We have to understand, Attorney Karen, that part of these complex issues which is being investigated by Quadcom is the en masse acquisition of land. Hectares of land, hundreds of hectares and perhaps thousands of hectares of land. And the people involved here are Chinese nationals who falsified documents to make it appear that they are Filipinos, that the corporation is 60% owned by the Filipinos, only to find out later on that it is purely owned by Chinese. And all of these things happened in Mexico, Pampanga. Similar to the shabu, which we apprehended in Mexico, Pampanga. The situs of the crime is also Mexico, Pampanga. The Pogos is also located in Mexico, Pampanga, or in Pampanga, the province of Pampanga. So we have this conclusion that everything started in Pampanga. Reason why we are holding the first Quadcom hearing there, to be particular in Bacolor, Pampanga. But yes, of course, one of the significance of holding the hearing there is to take a look on the properties which were confiscated already and to make sure that they will be preserved for the benefit of the Philippines.
Mm-hmm. When you mentioned that you will be inviting people from Pampanga, can you give us an idea as to who will be invited that are from that area?
At the very least, Attorney Karen, the local government units. Because we have to understand for these Pogos to operate, they will be applying for a business permit. And after the business permit, they have this BPLO to conduct a regular inspection of these Pogos. And we find it strange and questionable, really, how come these LGUs did not find out about the illegal Pogos in Pampanga. And not only that, Attorney Karen, we want to be clarified as well on what happened to the en masse acquisition of land in Pampanga. I discovered during the last hearing in public accounts that even the reclassification of lands were railroaded. In a span of 1 month, they were able to issue an ordinance reclassifying a land from agricultural to industrial. And right now, we are suspecting these lands to be used by Pogo operators as well. So our challenge here in going to Pampanga is to be able to bring to the investigation the local government units. I hope they will appear to shed light on this investigation and to see really what is the connection among all these things. The shabu that was apprehended in Mexico, Pampanga, the en masse acquisition of land in Pampanga, and the Pogo operations in Pampanga. Are they connected? Mm-hmm. That is the question.
Congresswoman Jinky, if all of your inquiry uncovers that there are government officials involved, local government, will there be prosecutions against those people that will be responsible?
Definitely yes, Attorney Karen. That is the significance of this inquiry in aid of legislation. Aside from passing the necessary laws to address and deter what we discovered in this investigation, we will be coming up with a committee report with recommendations, and certainly that will include the filing of the necessary civil, criminal, and administrative actions for the people behind all these illegal activities.
You mentioned earlier that it's starting to appear that all of these operations related to illegal Pogos seem to have the elements of transnational crimes. If that were the case, do you think that Philippine laws are sufficient to prosecute the illegal activities related to Pogos?
I think that we have laws. However, it will be more effective if we define transnational crime under one law. Like, for example, there's an issue of kidnapping, there's an issue of illegal gambling, there's an issue of money laundering. Mm-hmm. How will you address that if they are subject matter of different laws? I think the administration of justice will be more effective if we come up with a bill defining really what transnational crime is and defining the international syndicate who might be behind all these things.
PCOR regulates right now e-bingos and other online casino games. Why do you think was PCOR not effective in regulating Pogos? But before you answer that question, we'll have to go on a short break. At the Forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the Forefront. Before the break, Congresswoman Jinky, we were asking you, So PAGCOR regulates e-bingos and other online casino games. Why do you think PAGCOR was not as effective in regulating Pogos?
It is sad to say, Attorney, that it is because it involves huge amount of money. And even before, corruption is one of our challenging problems here in the Philippines. And I wish to believe that they're using this corruption issues, the intention to bribe, and this Pogo money to be able to manipulate and control people in the government. Not only PAGCOR, or I'm not saying about PAGCOR, but I wish to submit, Attorney Karen, that it will be very hard to perpetrate a crime in the Philippines by Chinese personalities without cooperation by Filipino nationals.
Okay, and that's what you're seeking to uncover
Yes.
in the Quadcom investigations. And right now, there's also questions on the location of Bamban Mayor Alex
Yeah,
Guo.
yeah.
Would you know where she is right now? I mean, in your opinion, do you think she's already out of the country? Would she have the capability to go out of the country?
I think she has all the capability because it has been established in the Senate investigation that she's very wealthy and she has influence, she has connections. So I think if she really intended to go out of the country, she can really do it. I hope really that we can address these two challenges which have been confronting us, which I think because of these challenges, Mayor Alice Go was able to go out of the radar of the Senate investigation. What these two challenges are, number one, Attorney Karen, these Chinese personalities have various names. Some of them have 3 names that you find it so hard to establish their identity. Even with the identity, you are challenged already. It took us like 2 or 3 investigations before we are able to establish who is this person. And then after you establish the identity, the next thing that you will try to realize is to locate their whereabouts. Because they have multiple personalities, even locating their whereabouts is very challenging. And just like what happened to Mayor Alice Goo, I wish to believe that the Senate was challenged with the identity, the whereabouts, until such time that Mayor Alice Go was able to go out of the radar of the Senate.
Well, from what we know, China is also against Pogos, the Chinese government. Have you ever considered asking for some sort of coordination with China in order to heighten that ability to identify suspects and also get information about them so that it's easier to locate them?
I am not aware, Attorney Karen, if that will be possible because we are confronted also by the issue in West Philippine Sea. And I don't think that the Philippines and China are in a very amiable relation right now because of this issue on West Philippine Sea. So I don't know any information about the coordination with the China government unless that the leadership has reached out to them for the possible information and assistance.
So you think that even asking for some type of coordination when it comes to stamping out Pogos is something that should be done at a higher level?
Yes. I think there's no harm in trying reaching out to the Chinese government because after all, they are against Pogos also. And helping the government put a stop to this will be helping the Asian region to put an end to all of this. And we still acknowledge the fact that China is still part of the Asian region.
Okay. Congresswoman Jinky, I'm going to switch gears and go to something lighter. So we want to know more about you. In the first place, why is your nickname Beatrix? That's a very unique nickname.
Beatrix is actually the namesake of my husband former mayor of Mabini, Batangas, and he was supposed to run back in 2022 for congressman, but because of some challenges, which I believe are demolition job, the fabricated cases of rape, we decided to switch. He stayed to run for mayor of Mabini, and I continued his congressional bid for Batangas 2nd District. And this Beatrix thing was really embraced and loved by the people of Batangas 2nd District. So it started just as a namesake of my husband, but this is really, for me now, is a term of endearment by the people of Batangas 2nd District for this representation who have prioritized really the people over anybody else.
So Beatrix doesn't really stand for anything. It's more of a nickname that your husband calls you.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I've never heard of Beatrix. So you call yourself an accidental politician. It's your first term as congresswoman to take the place of your husband.
Yeah.
How did you manage at the time when he was supposed to run? You said there were fabricated rape charges. How did you manage that? That must be something that's difficult.
Well, actually, since this was my first time to engage in politics, really, I found it very challenging to introduce myself to the people because I was never a barangay captain, I was never a mayor. As in, this is my first time to engage in politics. So I had to share to the people the challenges that my husband and my family went through because of his intention to run for congressman, and even describing myself that the only woman of the mayor of Mabini, and that makes the fabricated cases of rape really impossible.
So at least you stood by your husband at,
yes, of course.
that time. And for 2025, that's just around the corner, what are your plans as husband and wife? Are you going to run for a second term, or is it your husband who's going to run as congressman?
I will be running again for Congresswoman of Batangas 2nd District, and for us to better serve my hometown, my husband will be running for mayor of Mabini.
And your kids, how many kids do you have?
I actually have 3, but I have 2 stepchildren. One is a doctor, one is about to take the bar exam.
Wow.
And these 3 children of ours are still studying.
And how are they coping with 2 parents who are both politicians?
I think my children are very flexible because in the span of 1 year, when I started my campaign in May 2021, I think they learned to adjust already.
How are you balancing being a mom and also a congresswoman?
Well, I make it a point that when I am here in Quezon City, in Manila, that is Monday to Wednesday, the schedule for the session in Congress, I really find time to spend dinner with my children.
Well, we've seen how you perform in a congressional inquiry against Pogos. What is your personal advocacy?
My personal advocacy is to promote the best interest of the people and to deter all elements which prevent the promotion of this interest of the Filipino people. Pogo in itself, I believe, is not illegal. However, the circumstances surrounding the Pogo, the crimes that were committed, the people behind, this is what makes Pogo very much negative to all of us.
So if you do win a second term in Congress, do you intend to see through like further investigations, or do you think that Quadcom can finish all of its inquiry before 2025 elections?
You know, this Quadcom is chaired by highly respected and highly competent members of the House. For dangerous drugs, of course, we have Congressman Ace Barbers. For public accounts, we have Congressman Paduano. For human rights, we have Congressman Abante. And for public order and safety, we have Congressman Dan Fernandez. I have high hopes that we will be able to reach a conclusion to the investigation of all these issues confronting the Quad Committee.
You're also a member of House Speaker Romualdez's party, Lakas.
Yes.
And for the 2025 elections, it seems that the administration has filled their Senate slate or will be able to fill it. In case, for example, the opposition asks you to be part of their Senate slate, especially as a woman, is this something that you would consider?
No.
Why?
I'm very much happy and fulfilled being the congresswoman of Batangas 2nd District. And I understand that these senators, they went through a lot. It took them so much before they earned the title and the privilege of running for a senatorial state. For me, I think I'm still too young for this. Let me maximize my potential first in serving, delivering the best and the genuine public service to the people of Batangas 2nd District. I'm not even inclined into thinking about this thing.
Or national. Well, what about, for example, a cabinet post? If this was something that was open to you, would you also consider it?
Well, if the president will find me competent and trustworthy to handle any cabinet position, of course, it will always be my pleasure to partner with the president in the executive branch.
So what can people expect from you if you were to get a second term as Congresswoman of Batangas?
Well, I am very much fulfilled in helping the leadership, helping the House in unveiling the truth in all these investigations, and I continue passing bills which I believe will promote the best interests of the Filipino people. Everything that a member of the House are expected to do, we will just continue with it until we feel that we have done so much for our kababayan Filipinos.
Earlier, before we started the show, you mentioned to me that Batangas is the epicenter of the ASF problem.
Yeah.
How is Batangas coping with that issue?
I was in communication. I was always in communication with DA Secretary Tio Laurel because I think I am the one who first brought to his attention the situation of Lubok, Batangas. And the policy of the DA is really to put a lockdown in order to control the spread of ASF to hugs in other municipalities. So I think that they are implementing this already. Also, I think they have increased their budget already for the vaccine, and they're coming up with some sort of financial assistance for the hog raisers of, to be particular, this is the municipality of Lubok, Batangas.
So do you think there are improvements with these additional measures on vaccines and, are the hog populations increasing?
Right now, Attorney Karen, they're dying. All the hogs are dying, and the hog raisers are very busy burying all these hogs, even those which are still alive but infected already, in order to control the spread of ASF. But we're positive that the DA have come up already with their policies and their guidelines on how to address the issue in Lubok, Batangas. And soon, the people of Lubok, Batangas will feel the assistance of the Department of Agriculture.
Okay. As a legislator, what do you think are measures that would be needed, like even from a legislative standpoint, to avoid issues like ASF in the future?
I think we need to come up with the regular vaccine. Whatever vaccine is necessary, we should to adopt a preventive approach rather than coming up with this kind of situation where you are confronted already with a very serious problem on ASF. Come up with preventive measures in order that we will not be suffering from the effects of this ASF. Because it's not only the hog raisers which are affected, Attorney. Even the helpers in the piggeries, even the vendors of meat products, this is encompassing. And what is happening, I think, although I have not validated this, I just observed this in Manila, if there are problems on hogs, even the prices of the other commodities increase.
Yes, actually the pork prices have really been so inflated that it's really something that I don't think has gone back to normal at
Well,
this
it's
point.
down now.
Yeah.
It's down now because of the ASF, and people are not inclined to having pork nowadays because of the ASF issue. So about the price of pork, I believe it has went down seriously, but the moment we are done with this ASF problem, yes, it will really rise again.
Okay. And as parting words, perhaps you can go back to the national issue of Pogos before you begin your Quadcom hearings in Pampanga. Are there any parting words that you can share with us, what the public can expect from the Quadcom hearings?
Well, my parting word, apparently we were not able to control the Pogo-related crimes. So I honestly believe that we did not have the necessary capacity, laws, regulations, in order to ensure that Pogo operations will be within the bounds of legality. And having seen this, let us work together, realize the pronouncement of the President, put an end, and then we study again, and then come up with a decision. Can we do this? Can we allow the Pogo to operate here in the Philippines? Although I understand that the feeling of the Filipino people, ayaw na nila sa Pogo. This is because of all the evils that were unfolded because of the Pogo operations. I was trying to convince the chairman if we can share during the committee hearing all the photos and the documents of the crimes which were committed in Pogo operation, because they are really morally shocking, Attorney Karen, that to this date, some members of the House would oppose sharing them to the public, sharing them to the media, but I think the people need to see. The people need to see the evils of this Pogo so they will realize what is really impelling us to go after these Pogo operators.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Jinky Luistro. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Attorney Karen, and it is really my pleasure.
Good luck with your congressional inquiries.
Thank you.
At the Forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the Forefront. Congresswoman Luistro is not one to buckle down when it comes to the law. A masterful interrogator and cross-examiner while practicing law, she brought her skills to the House with great flair. She is confident that people responsible for criminal activities in Pogo operations will eventually be held accountable for their actions. Despite being a busy member of the House of Representatives, she remains a dutiful wife to her husband and mother to her children. Be timely informed, be insightful of the news. Always stay at the forefront. Join us again tomorrow for meaningful conversations. This is Attorney Karen Jimeno. Thank you for spending your hour with us.